This will be your one-stop shop for everything you guys need to know about team building in Dragon Quest: The Adventures of Dai, A Hero's Bond, the brand new Dragon Quest mobile game that has just recently came out. So the game is brand new worldwide. It is not a game that had a Japanese version or whatever version that was out months in advance and it's just getting localized now. The game is worldwide, just launched currently. So that means that the resources, things like that, are obviously going to change as we go on. There's not a Japanese version to base these types of videos off of. So the things that we're going to talk about in this video are going to be some sentiments I've seen from other players of the game. Again, everybody's new to the game, and then more or less my own experiences. So I'm going to try to cut through this as quickly as possible, but please understand the video will still probably be longer than some of you guys are expecting, just because there's a lot that really goes into actual strategizing and team building in this game that you're going to want to make sure you listen to the video to understand. So if you're somebody with a shorter attention span, I'm sorry, I can't help you, but what I can recommend is maybe pause the video, coming back when you have time to finish it, and or putting the video on 1.25 times speed does help a lot of people get through it, and that's just a general trick on YouTube anyway. I do that myself sometimes for videos that are probably a little longer. Anyways, so when it comes to this video, we're going to break it down into 3 different sections. First and foremost, the first part's going to be very quick and easy. I'm going to explain the elements because it's very important that you understand the way elements are working in this game based on your partner buffs and stuff like that. Speaking of partners, we're going to talk about choosing characters for your partner in your team constructions, and also the vocations that your partners will have in your own character, and then last but not least, how to balance and build a team cohesively, right? So the first thing I want to say is I don't think that, in my opinion anyway, there's any like cookie cutter, like you could jump on some other game and say, oh, this is the cookie cutter best meta team or whatever. I don't think that happens or exists on this game currently, and the reason why is because, and this applies to those other games as well too, for the record, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of content in this game that is going to say, hey, you can't use these characters or these vocations for whatever reasons. They're going to restrict your team to obviously force you to be creative and combat the ability to just take the same 4 characters into every content, you know, available in the game. There are other stages as well. They're going to say you can't use this character. Maybe you need to change your created character's vocation. Like, there's different restrictions that are laid out that are going to force you to change your characters. But one thing you guys really need to understand about this game is, as the name would suggest, all about bonds. And the reason that's important is because you're not boosting up bonds by doing anything other than playing the game. You literally have to play the game. Yeah, that sounds surprising. You have to play the game. Ooh, you have to play the game, yes, but you have to play with every character pretty much. And with that, you will boost the bond levels of these characters, allowing more passive total bond effects. So understand, you need to play with every character they're giving you, and each character, even if it's a duplicate, as you see here, there's 2 different Hunkles. They have there's different styles, will have different levels as well. You will need to play with the other characters, so do understand that, okay? You're not going to pretty much take one team and just say that's it. I mean, you could min-max if you want to. If you really, really want to, you could do that. But I don't think there's any like definitive best team personally. Anyways, so let's talk about the elements here. So we're going to pull up the resistance board. It's a pretty quick, easy way to show you. So these are the elements right here: slash, thrust, ice, light, all that stuff. Those are the base resistances that my character would have, but those are the elements anyway. So he's pretty good with resistances to armor currently. I assume some of that's probably tied into, slash, excuse me. It's tied into the armor. So you can see some of the traits he's getting from the equipment. That's something a little bit different. So that's important because as my team is currently constructed, that icon for the slash, you might notice it on my characters in the bottom corner of the character icons. So Dai is an important character for my team to be partnered with, or for my created character to be partnered with, because he actually raises slash damage for your hero slash partner, while also raising physical and magical attack for a short time after guarding successfully for, again, he himself and for my character when he's my partner. That's pretty much the hero slash partner means. Leader slash partner, they're both getting that buff. So Dai is a good character to put there. That character you're going to put in the partner slot though does vary. It varies based on your created character's playstyle, because you're not able to take this character off your team. Any team you build needs to have this character, and that means that you will need to be using this character in vocations that you're familiar with and that you like playing. Obviously there's 4 of them currently. As you see, I haven't bothered with Priest because I have no skills for it, so that's another thing that we'll talk about in a moment. But you need to build your team around that, right? And in each of these different vocations, I mean, you can use a different class of weapon, and with different weapons, you're using different skills. It really just kind of changes, right? So the thing about that is since you can't take your created character off of your team, you need to really just kind of build something that you're comfortable with. The idea behind this team is this is the starter team. For the record, this is nothing crazy, but for the record, the starter setup is really good actually. This is the 4 characters you're pretty much going to start with. You will unlock other characters as you play through the story and as you play through events, but it's a good setup because most of the time if you're going to choose the hero or warrior class, you're probably using some sort of sword or something, so you're going to have a slash element, weapon and skills and stuff like that. So Dai is a good partner. Dai also is a good character to be controlling as a partner because that's the only character you can actually control outside of your own character, whoever's in the partner spot. And what that means is in this setup, Mom and Pop are going to be in the back row, right? They're going to be doing things from back, mid-range, supporting effects, damage, and things like that, while Dai is mainly the sponge of this team. He's going to the front row, taking all the hits. My hero character, or warrior class, I guess right now, will also be a character that's doing that melee damage up front. So that's more or less a good setup. He keeps the characters in the front die, and my character will keep the enemy from Ma and Pop. And basically, I said Ma and Pop, but it's Mom and Pop, but whatever. Anyways, we'll keep them away from those characters, right? So let's say we were to change things up a little bit. If I were to choose a different vocation, obviously things do change a little bit. So I haven't fiddled with Priest whatsoever, because I have no equipment. I have no skills really. I have equipment. I don't have a good weapon, I guess. Maybe I probably do. Maybe if I took it away from Mom or something like that, because she actually has that vocation, even though you can't actually see the vocations of these styles of these characters. But this version of Mom does actually have the priest vocation. She's a priest, Pop's a mage, blah blah blah. So yeah, I don't really need another, but like if I were to need another, I wouldn't really have the skills. So a lot of times skills are going to be tied to 3 and 4-star weapons. Mom's weapon is a really good one for healing based things. It does have an added effect for that. I don't have that, so she's actually just using the default mighty swoosh. But I use her all the time. Just for the record, she's on literally like every team I build. So do consider that as well. Anyway, so if I were to choose that vocation, obviously maybe my playstyle switches up, because with this type of vocation your character needs to be more in the back row. So this is more about the balance aspect of it, because if I were to do this, right, then maybe since I'm going to be spending most of my time in the back row, you could still leave Dai or a character like Dai as your partner. I mean, he's not really buffing me with my current setup because I'm not doing any slash element damage. I don't have anything really equipped. It's just all default stuff, but I can give a slash based wand or whatever. Anyways, maybe you do that so you can switch up play styles and say, hey, I want to have a character that can be in the front and in the back row, and then leave the setup the way it is and you're fine. You could also decide to switch and put Dai in a different spot. Let's change, actually let's make her my partner just for sake of just right now. If I were to switch this would give me the utility of controlling 2 backline characters, having a tank and Dai who would, again, stay in the front row, pretty much doing good damage as well. He'd be a character that would be sponging up all the hits while I can be in the back row doing supporting effects. I don't think you really need 2 priests, right? I don't think you need that, but if I were to like switch it to a mage, same thing would apply as well, pretty much. So that's a little bit of the balance idea. So let's just go ahead and build a new team pretty much from scratch, centered around my created character. And again, I really want to drive home, whatever vocation you're choosing, obviously you want to choose what you enjoy, right? But the reality is it's going to be tied to what weapons you have, right? If you got the Vortex axe, which is a really good axe, warrior class is a really good class. They're all good for their own merits and reasons, right? But unless you're using Crocodile, you're not really giving that to anyone else. So you could equip that on your character. I believe he has to be a warrior to use that. Anyways, if you were to put that on your character, you can go hyper offensive and run some other characters in the back line or whatever the case is, because he's going to stay in the front row pretty much the whole time. But he'd be really good. So it just depends on what you have, right? But I think most people are probably going to be using hero or whatever the case is. So let's switch it up though and do something entirely out of left field. So one thing that happens a lot is Pop winds up being a character that is pretty much always the MVP of my teams, because for whatever reason it just seems like the Kafriz spell here is ridiculous. It has a good amount of might, and it does a lot of damage on a wide range. It hits a lot. He's always the MVP of damage, always. Like, Kafriz is very, very powerful. It doesn't matter what I'm taking on, if they have fire resistance or whatever, he is doing a lot of damage. So let's say I took him off of my team, right? and I made my character a mage. So we'll change my vocation to mage. He will want to use Pop's stuff, so obviously since Pop is on the team, that's not going to work. So we will change out Pop and take a look at some of the other characters. Now, I will be having a guide video talking about these characters and what you need to know about these characters individually. Again, like I said, I don't think there's any in particular best strategy. I do think that you need to use all these characters pretty much all the time to really get the best out of them. But another thing too on top of that is each of these guys does have different things that are good about them. I don't really love the Hyunko characters. They kind of have a weird playstyle where they are always low on HP. He has a skill that kind of lowers his own defenses, if I recall correctly. It's just kind of weird, but maybe if I have more skills for him, I'd like him a little bit better. There's 2 versions of him currently in the game, like I showed. But what we will do is we'll put Avon. So Avon is interesting. Because Avon is a character that he has access to some. He's a good tank as well, and understand as well when you're building your teams and your characters, you will get better at it as you obviously proceed with your characters and give them other traits, because the characters have these boards with whole other passives, right, that they don't have on default. Like a good example is Dai. He has current traits for just defensive type of stuff, a little bit of physical attack there, and then they also will pick up other stuff for equipment. I'm not really going to talk too much about equipment. I'll briefly touch on that in a minute, but like these characters, if I were to go to the boards just to show you what I mean, these characters have other things that are tied in, right, that are going to really impact their overall usability as they proceed, or you proceed with them. So I unlocked some more boards here. Actually, this is really just because it's the first time I'm using this on this tablet, I believe. Anyways, this should be a trait panel. Raises the user's physical attack for a short time after successfully guarding. I actually have that one there. And then here's another one I don't have. Raises slash damage. There are other ones on here as well, like this one here. Raises slash damage another 5%. There are different things on these character boards that are going to give them a little bit of play styles, right? So in terms of Avon, he's a character that's got some good defenses, got some good offenses. I like running him on the team. We'll go do that for our mock team. And what happens with Avon is his play style is that he actually winds up being in the front line a lot. So it wound up being pretty interesting having him. So looking at the passives here, light damage, weak point damage, raises his defenses of allies for a short time after successfully guarding. That's very good. We'll go back to our team building. All right, so Avon, we placed him on the team. Now, I do think that him and Dai is a little bit redundant. So what I will do is, if I'm going to have Dai on the team, he could wind up being a ally for me, but I'm probably not going to do that. Instead, we're going to start off by auto-equipping. And for the record, I said I'd briefly touch on equipment. Equips have traits, passive effects that they're applying to your character, raises the user's fire damage when skill hits, and obviously this will have some fire resistance debuffs or things like that. So it's all centered around doing more fire damage. He now has that weapon, and he now has the Pop skills equipped as well. Pop did have a partner bond, so if I had a duplicate of his weapon, you could fuse it, but I'd probably personally keep a second, just so I could run Pop as a partner and get the fire damage buff, and then just have a crazy backline setup. In which case, if I did do that, then maybe, just maybe, I would run Avon and Dai as 2 other characters. But I talked about Mom and how she's on pretty much every team that I use, because she's one of the only healing characters in the game, being a priest. So Mom is a character I will still leave on this set, but the problem is, again, you're not getting those partner buffs because I'm not doing slash base. I'm doing more of a fire thing right now. Anyway, so let's go ahead and switch out Dai though, actually, because I do have a character in Avon that will stay in the front line and sponge damage. You could take this and be fine, for the record, but to kind of min-max this a little bit more, we'll set a different ally. So all right, so we switched Mom to being another character to support me, and I do want to have another character that I can use in this placement, so we'll actually switch to Crocodile. So I don't have the best axes. I don't own the Vortex axe, so I don't own the Beast King Redemption Blast, but I do have some decent stuff here and his default stuff here. So he's a character that I can switch to that'll allow me the flexibility of having another frontline playstyle if I would like that, and then also giving me the access to have higher guard breaks and higher offensive capability. Another thing to consider is the stock on your skills, which is a whole different thing as well that you're gonna more or less get by upgrading skills, which I'm just probably gonna make alternate videos for these things. But here's a layout that I think you could take into some content and be successful with. But again, remember, content's going to have different restrictions, right? And the funny thing is, like I said, the default setup of your character, then die in the spot right here where Hunkel is like really good if you use a melee based character, right? You know, if you're doing other things, then maybe you switch it up a little bit. But that's pretty much everything you guys need to know. But I really want to drive home the idea that please play with as many characters as possible. Please level up the partner bonds and vocations as much as possible for all your characters, because the vocation boards are very important. That's where you're going to get more stats, which will obviously make your characters better and your power go higher. It'll allow for them to pick up new passives, and raising the bond of your character not only gives you different total bond levels here, right? Bond effects, but obviously by focusing on your bond that you have for your partner, you will get bonus things applied based on who you're using on your team. And that's pretty much the most important thing in the game. That's the name of the game, is the bonds of the characters, right? And if you are trying to build a team and you're starting just fresh, do consider which 4-star weapon you do have. I don't have a reroll guide, but I'll probably come back and do that if you're wondering which one to start off with. I think actually there's strong claims that you can make for several of them actually, but like if you start off with a 4-star weapon, that's what you're going to want to do. If you don't, the thing is, like, let me actually say this, if you don't start off with a 4-star weapon, the good news is the game actually starts you with one anyway. I should have considered that earlier for this guide. The game starts you with one anyway, so we'll go back here. I'll actually just equip the lance. Now the lance, was it not here by, oh, I was gonna say the lance is actually really interesting because I really like the lance because of the range of the skills. The lance has insane range. It's like the furthest hit, as it makes sense, right? But it's a weapon that can hit enemies on the back line. The skills are very powerful. So like, you don't want to get more of this. Like if you were starting off the game, if you pull a dupe of it, then whatever. But if you build your character like that, the playstyle doesn't change that much. But since you're no longer doing slash space damage, you're doing what, thrust damage or whatever it would be, then obviously you may want to change your partner or ally. But again, you can kind of sacrifice that specific elemental based damage buff if you really want to, and you'd be fine with that too. But the playstyle doesn't change a ton, but you would start off with this, so really you can build your team around this as well. And one thing I would say is, if you have the hero character, having mom on your team is going to help you a ton, because again, you have these characters that want to be in the front line, and having a character in the back healing them passively 15, 16, 17, 18 HP every X number of timer counts. And if you get her recovery up a little bit more, I think her weapon does boost her recovery skills, like things like that. So anyways, I talked long enough. Really, I just wanted to say that there's a lot that goes into this. It seems like it could be a lot. It took me a few days to understand. I mean, the game's been on for like 5 days, right? So it's not crazy. It's not the most in-depth, immersive thing, but I do want you guys to be thoughtful about your teams, because as more content comes out, you'll want to have different things for different reasons. Anyways, thank you all for tuning in. If you found the video helpful, hit the thumbs up and subscribe, share the video with your friends, and I'll see all of you in the next one.